Good morning, everyone. This is taoshobuddha live via Facebook streaming, YouTube streaming, and also for those who are connected via Skype. Each one of you is welcome to this live streaming. My trip to Hollywood and DC is beginning from 16th to 23rd of August. 19th afternoon I'll be reaching Washington DC for the continued visit to the shores of United States, during which I will explore certain deeper aspects in the process of inner awakening. Inner awakening is the essence that we all are seeking. Inaction, the key to self-remembering. There are three words: action, inaction, and non-action. We have to understand the essence of these words. Inaction is the key to remembering, and remembering is the key to devotion. If you do not remember who you are, how the devotion can begin? If you do not have an insight into what is the inner connection between you and me, how the devotion will arise. So inaction is the key to devotion. Inaction is the key to self-remembering, and self-remembering is the key to devotion. Whereas action is central and essential aspect of spiritual discipline. It is only through action that you can discipline your life and yourself and achieve what you need to achieve in the process. And inaction is the door to devotion. These three words were coined in Bhagavad Gita: karma, akarma, or vikarma. Action, non-action, and inaction. It would be imperative to understand what Krishna understands by inaction. When I am explaining the methodology of Krishna, it is not the interpretation, it is not a commentary in any way. I am not here to comment anything. When you reach to the same level of consciousness where the author who has written or one who has spoken these words, then you will be able to understand and explain. Of course, the explanation will be your own words. In the absence, you will go on interpreting it. I think Krishna said so, he meant this. Someone else says, no, it is not. It's a play of your own mind comes in. After awakening, you reach to the same source, the beginning. From there, when you read it, the true essence comes to be known as. It would be good to properly understand Krishna's principle of inaction. Unfortunately, it has not been rightly understood. To say that it has not been rightly understood so far, the spiritual journey is very individual. And I am interested in you understand this. There have been many who have interpreted and seem to have no right understanding of inaction. Most of them have explained, understood inaction as renunciation. They always said, renounce the world. Renounce your family, renounce everything. But do you understand what renunciation is? And how do you achieve renunciation? Renunciation is an act in that way. You have to do something to renounce the world or the family. The interpreters went on telling people to give up everything, their profession, families, and even love, and escape to mountains or monasteries or caves or some solitary place. But renunciation is as much an act as indulgence. Krishna was really misunderstood then. Inaction was thought to be just renunciation and escapism, but it is not in reality. And as a result of this, there is a century-old tradition of renunciation and escape from the life. That has been the way in the East India specifically. And all this happened in the name of Krishna. No one ever bothered to seek, to look into the life of Krishna. Was he renunciate? He never left the world. His family and his worldly responsibilities he never left. Then how can he ask you to do that? In his childhood, he spent many prank actions. But what is very important, during all these he was aware of his essence. If you are aware of your essence, who you are, then you can engage in any activity and that will not bind you. That will simply lead you on a different voyage. No one has ever bothered to look into the life of Krishna himself. Was he a renunciate? He never left his world. He never left family, the worldly responsibilities. He had his youth pranks with the milkmaids, which was an essential part. If you see that he was not attached to anything, he was doing everything as a part because it is necessary for your growth. I show extreme love and concern for you, just like a doctor does for his patient. In front of the patient, doctor has to exhibit so much of intimacy, as if he alone exists for the doctor. This is the way the patient develops self-confidence, and the process of healing gets an impetus. But is he really attached to the patient? No. He knows the art of attaching himself to a patient, to a particular person or situation wherever he is needed, and withdraw himself immediately when the work is over. He spends time with the milkmaid. Who were these milkmaids with whom Krishna seemed to have a youthful pranks? They were sages of the past who were engrossed in the act of disciplining their life. You can discipline your life, that is what Sufis call the way of suluk. But if you do not understand the intricacies of heart, intricacies of love, you remain incomplete. But when I say intricacies of love, I do not mean you need to go to someone and don't do it. You are total unto yourself. You have both poles, masculine and feminine, as yin and yang, Shiva and Shakti, a harmony between two opposite forces leads to the experience of love. Shiva and Shakti are two aspects of the existential energy. When they are in balance with one another, love is born, understanding comes. For that you do not need the company of the other. But sometimes Master creates a situation. So these ancient sages wanted to know about love, the journey through the realm of heart, wanted to know about discipline. Discipline they have known on their own, but devotion, what it is, what does it, how does it operate? So it was said, their wish was granted. When I will assume form as Krishna, you will assume form as milkmaids, and through interaction with that which has tasted truth, uses truth as a vehicle, and is ever blissful, Satchitanand, truth, consciousness, and bliss. Krishna fills that void, the spiritual aspect of love, into the lives of the milkmaids. Krishna need not operate with them at the physical level. This is the deepest aspect, but outsider, when watches it, feels that is what is going on. When we try to look into all the aspects of Krishna, when he says, I have nothing to do in the three universe because I am fulfilled, yet still I engage in action because men follow my path. Someone needs a journey through love. I have to enact that part. And unless we understand the totality of Krishna, So when his role with the milkmaids was over, there were other responsibilities for which he has assumed the form. I have finished this assignment. I have to go on to the other. I have come to your city, spend some time with you, but the journey has to continue. I must move on my other errands. Sometimes, therefore, I wonder how such a long tradition can be so blind. All along it has refused to see this stark fact that the man who applauds inaction so much is himself deeply engaged in action throughout his life. He loves, he marries, he has children, he fights, engages in the war, and negotiates peace. He does many other things. So by no stretch of imagination can Krishna's inaction be interpreted as renunciation, an escape. He does not, when the time was to enact the role, to give the taste of love, to fulfill the mother's love towards a child, Krishna enacted it so beautifully that there is, even now we give the example of Krishna and his foster mother Yashoda when it comes to the mother and the child relation. No way there was an escape. When it comes to the youth, you need to express your love towards your spouse. His expressions, his gestures, his words make every milkmaid feel that Krishna is mine and mine alone, and he loves me alone and no one else. This is his way. He did not leave the world. So how can you interpret that inaction is renunciation? In this context, Krishna uses three words: akarma, karma and vikarma. Meaning, akarma means inaction, karma means action, and vikarma means non-action. What is action? According to Krishna, mere doing is not an action. It is true. If any kind of doing is action, then one could never enter into inaction. Then inaction of Krishna's definition will be impossible. For Krishna, action is that which you do as a doer with a sense of ego. In action, this sense of ego remains. I am the doer. Through my own efforts, I will achieve this and that. Mere doing something is not an action. With doing comes this sense of ego. If that be true, that action is mere doing something, then the inaction of Krishna's definition would be impossible. For Krishna, action is that which you do as a doer, as a sense of ego. Really, action for Krishna is an egocentric act. Make note of this: egocentric action, an act in which doer is always present, an act in which the doer is always present, a doing with a doer. Action with the awareness of the doer, in which one thinks himself as a doer, that is an action. When you think that I am the doer, then it is an action. Even renunciation becomes an action if the doer is present in that act. But if renunciation happens spontaneously on its own, then it's a totally different thing. So action comes with a sense of doership, egocentric. Inaction is just opposite of action. It is an action, but the doer sense is not available. You are simply an instrument, as Rumi says, be afloat, empty within, hollow within, and let the music of the unknown play through you. You are simply an instrument. There is no sense of ego or no sense of doing in you. You're simply allowing the things to happen through you, the music to flow through you, the actions to flow through you. Then the same act becomes inaction. An action without the sense of doer sense, the egocentric action. Inaction does not mean absence of action, but it certainly means absence of doership, the feeling that I am the doer. An egoless action is inaction. An egoless action without the sense of the doer is inaction. If I do a thing without the doer sense, that I am the doer, that I am the center of action, is inaction. This is Krishna's way. Inaction in no way is laziness, as is generally understood. It is very much action, but action without a doer. Doer at its center. Everything is happening through you, but the sense of the doership is no more available. This thing has to be clearly understood. If the center, the ego, the I, the doer ceases, only action remains. It is inaction. With the cessation of the doer, everything that you do becomes inaction. It simply flows through you. It simply flows through you. Action without the sense of the doer is inaction. It is action through inaction. Action through inaction. Krishna's every action is egoless, and therefore it is inaction. Even when he is doing something, he is really in a state of egolessness, and that is why it is inaction. Between action and inaction, there is akarma non-action, which means a special kind of action. It comes in between. Action and inaction are the two shores. Between them is non-action, which means a special kind of action. Inaction is egoless action. One shore is egoless action. and action the other shore, which is action with the sense of the doership. Inaction is egoless action, and action is egoistic action, and non-action is a special kind of action. This thing is midway between action and inaction, which Krishna calls it as non-action. This needs to be understood as well. What does Krishna really mean by non-action? Where there is neither a sense of doership nor the sense of its absence, yet things are happening. There is non-action. When you attain to oneness, what is oneness? When the duality is no more. When the duality is no more, so long as you had been living in a state of duality, everything dualistic, you and I. But when the duality disappears, oneness remains. From your side, the duality has disappeared, that's why there is oneness. But from the side of existence, there has always been oneness. So it is not right to say either that you have attained to oneness. But the words are so. So there are two shores. On one shore is action with a sense of ego, with a sense of doership, and the other shore is inaction, where the sense of doership has vanished. But the river flows between these two shores. River flows between these two shores, and that is non-action. For example, you breathe, which we are not required to do on our own efforts. There is neither a sense of doer nor the sense of its absence. There is neither a doer nor a doing so far as acts like breathing are concerned. Similarly, the blood circulates throughout the body, food is digested, heart beats. How can you categorize such actions, such acts? They come in the category of non-action, which means action is happening without the doer and also without the sense of violation of doing. An ordinary person lives in action, and one who is on the path lives in a state of inaction. Ordinary person lives in a state of action. I am doing, I am this, I am that. One who is on the path, he comes in a state of non-inaction. In that state, the sense of doership vanishes, and the awakened one lives in a state of non-action. He is neither the doer nor the non-doer. Just like the breathing happens, blood circulates. Is there any sense of doing? You say that I am breathing now, or it is I who make the blood circulate, or you say that I do not do anything for the blood circulation, it simply happens. That is a state of non-action. As far as God's action is concerned, there is neither doer nor any doing of any kind that we know. There things just happen, it is happening. There are a few things in the life of man that just happen. And these are non-actions. In fact, these actions are divine operations. Do you think it is you who breathe? If you think you are breathing, then you are mistaken. If you were the master of this action known as breathing, then you would never die really. Then you can continue to breathe even when death knocks at your door. But you say you are not doing to stop the breathing, or try it otherwise. Stop breathing for a little while, and you will know that you cannot stop it either. Neither you can make it happen, nor you can stop it either. Your breath will refuse to obey you to continue or to stop it. When a particular act refuses to obey your instructions, when a particular action refuses to obey your actions to continue or to stop, it is non-action. Try it otherwise. Stop breathing for a little while, and you will know you cannot stop it either. Your breath will refuse to obey instructions from you. It will soon resume its breathing. In breathing, you are neither the doer nor the doing itself. Many things in life are like breathing. They just happen. When everything begins to happen consciously in your life like that, simply happening, it is non-action. If someone understands rightly what non-action is, it comes to know its mystery. He will soon enter into a state of inaction, which is acting without the center and ego. Then he knows that every significant thing in life happens on its own. Love happens on its own because it is the most significant thing. Then he comes to know that everything significant in life happens on its own. It is utterly stupid to try to be a doer. And he is wise. He alone is the sage. He alone is the sage. I have heard a person boarded a train and took a seat, but the bag he carried with him remained sitting on his head. The fellow travelers were surprised and asked him why he is still keeping his bag on his head. The man said he did not want to add burden on the train. He did not want to add burden on the train. So he is keeping on his head. The man said he was having his bag that he was carrying on his head. The man said he did not want to add more burden to the train which was already overloaded. The fellow travelers were amused, and one of them said to him, "You seem to be a crazy person. Even if you carry the load on your head, it is going to be indirectly a load on the train. Why carry an unnecessary burden on your head? Isn't it stupid?" The man burst into laughter. He said, "I thought you were householder, but you seem to be one on the path." This man was a real on the path. He said, "I carry the bag on my head in order to conform the burden of the world on your head, although you know that it is like the train, it is God who bears all burdens. I just wanted to conform to your ways. It is right way of the one on the path. He is not a doer, everything is just happening." Let me repeat this again. The man burst into laughter and said, "I had thought you were a householder, but you seem to be one on the path." This man was really on the path. He said, "I carry the bag on my head in order to conform to the ways of the world. I wonder why you laugh at me. I see all of you carrying the burden of the world on your head, although you know that, like the train, it is God who bears all the burdens. I just wanted to conform your ways." And then the man not only put the bag down on the train, he seated himself on it, saying, "This is the right way of the one on the path." He is not the doer, everything just happens. One who understands the beauty of non-action, that things are happening, enters the state of inaction, which is acting without the sense of ego. As we are all doers, and all our doings are egocentric. We live in action. But if we understand what non-action is, we will begin to live in a state of non-action. Then inaction will be at the center of our being, and action will be on the periphery. At the center, you know there is that you are not doing, but on the periphery, everything is happening through you. Inaction is foundation to Krishna's devotion or his way of life, or whatever you may call it. You do not have to do anything. You have to only allow things to happen. You have to die to your doer, sense of doer, to your ego. And the moment doer disappears, remembering happens. This doer is the China wall that separates you from the authentic being and makes you forget it. As long as this wall remains, you cannot know who you are. Then chanting the name of Ram or Krishna or any mantra will not help, because it is the doer who chants and repeats the name, the mantra. And you go on saying that I chant my mantra or prayer so many times. Let the doer go, let the ego disappear. But how will the doer go? Just try to understand what inaction is. Continue to act, but try to understand what inaction is. Continue to do what you do, but try to understand life. The very understanding of life and its way will tell you nothing is in your hands. Neither you decide to be born, nor you decide to die. Neither you breathe on your own, nor do you have a hand in the circulation of your blood through your body. You were not consulted before your birth, and you will not be consulted when the time comes for you to depart from the world. Do you have a say in when you grow from childhood to youth to old age? Existence was much here when you were not, and it will be there even after you are gone. You will make no difference whatsoever so far as existence is concerned. Stars will continue to shine as brightly as ever. Flowers will blossom as they have always blossomed. Streams will continue to flow. Birds will continue to sing. We are like lines drawn on the surface of the water. No sooner they are drawn, they disappear. Then why carry this utterly unnecessary burden of I on our heads? This is what meant by that person who was carrying his bag on his shoulder. The burden of I on our heads and suffer endlessly. If whole existence can go without me, why can't I go without me? It does not matter. The stars will continue to shine. The birds will sing. The flowers will blossom. Everything will continue as it is, with you or without you. If existence can continue to live like that, can exist like that, why can't I exist without my sense of doing? To understand the deeper meaning of non-action is wisdom. To understand non-action is to understand everything, and then every action becomes inaction. Then you do everything without this sense of doer. Then you act through inaction. Non-action is the gate to wisdom. It is alchemical. Passing through ordinary action, if one encounters non-action with understanding, he will soon come upon inaction, which in its turn leads to remembering. Remembering happens only in a state of inaction. Remembering that comes with an effort is false. It is another form of action. Remembering that comes on its own effortlessly is real. It comes straight from the cosmos, straight from the existence. That is why we say Upanishads are divine revelations. Whenever something comes from the beyond, whoever may be the medium, it is divine revelation. Not only Quran is considered to be a revelation. Bible is as much as divine revelation as Vedas are. That is why Jesus says again and again that his Father in heaven speaks through him. Krishna says, I am not, only God is. I am God. And it is I who am making this battle of Mahabharat happen. It is all my play. Only this much for this morning. During the stay in DC, the broadcasts will as usual be there, but times will be different. However, live streaming and the videos will be available on YouTube. Until then, take care and do have a pleasant day.